And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, coming to you from the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. As always, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to broach, people you'd like us to talk to, just put them in the comments below, or you can send us an email at the Barry Foster Show. That's the Barry Foster Show at gmail.com, and you can get us that way. As always, we appreciate Ridge Florist, and if you need flowers for any occasion, Ridge Florist is the place to go, an FTD florist, and you can find them very easily either by going to their studios at 111 Memorial Drive, just north of the intersection of Memorial Drive and the Parkway. You can call them at 863-382-4477 or go online at ridgefloristofsebring.com. In the studios, we have Tom Macklin, who's former mayor of Avon Park, former council member, former member of the Code Enforcement Board, and a gentleman who has tracked the city of Charm and the city council for many, many years, and has served as the memory for council, as I've actually done in the past as well. We have a rotating council. Sometimes people don't know how they got to where they are, and you are able to kind of chronicle some of the events that happen and say, this is how we got to where we are, because not everybody chronicles that kind of thing, and I think that's very important. So, Tom, good to have you with us this morning.
Well, thank you for the call, and Happy New Year to you, Barry.
Happy New Year to you. And listen, this really began for me back when there was a hearing for the Florida Department of Transportation, which was, I thought, was about restriping the downtown area. This is a conversation that's been going on for quite some long time, and the idea was that they were going to have angle parking. They were going to take Main Street down to one lane in either direction, and slow the traffic down, make it more pedestrian friendly, make it more business friendly. And when I got there, I found out that what had been advertised, which was not really what they were talking about. They were talking about turning over the maintenance and the ownership of Main Street from the Florida Department of Transportation to the city of Avon Park.
Well, you're exactly right. And almost to a person, I would say, at least as far as the citizens that were in the room, that was their understanding as to what that meeting was for as well. The advertisement that went out, at least from the city's website, showed a number of different pictures that had to do with the segments, zone 1, 2, and 3, and the different options or alternatives that had been adopted by the council back in May of 2023 by resolution. And that's what we thought this conversation was going to be about. But we were quickly made aware of the fact that that was not the case.
No, and I was stunned after some research that you did, that I thought that they were just going to turn over the downtown section. For the people who are familiar with Avon Park, it would be roughly from the railroad tracks down to where the road narrows down there by Lake Verona, Hendrick's Grocery, if you're looking for a milepost there. But it really is not that. It is a long section of the roadway that starts on Cornell, comes up Memorial, taps into Main Street, makes that turn and heads out all the way to 27. They're talking about a good long way that they're going to turn over.
Well, yeah, and really what we need to be talking about, and what was talked about for so long, was the what they called a 3R project, which is the repurposing, the resurfacing, rehabilitation of County Road 17. And that project for the state, under their resurfacing project, begins at U.S. Highway 27 in Main Street in Avon Park and goes all the way down to where State Road 17 dumps back out on Highway 27 by the old Southgate Plaza in Sebring. Yeah. But all that we had ever talked about inside the city limits of Avon Park was a lane repurposing project that began at Main Street and ended at Delaney, where the 4 lanes go back to 2.
Now, you've lived in Avon Park a lot longer than I've been here. I'm a Johnny-come-lately. I came in 86. You've been here since seventh grade,
74 and ninth grader.
ninth,
Yep.
ninth grade, but there is a lot of confusion that goes on here because there's State Road 64 and there's County Road 64 and there's Highlands County 17 and there's County Road 17, there's State Road 17. So when you see the numbers, that does not necessarily mean the same thing. Although you look, we were talking about this, that State Road 64, which is Main Street, really ends at the top of the hill up there, right? Is that
No, actually, State Road 64, which originates on the west coast of Florida, comes all the way across. Its termination point is actually at U.S. Highway 27
really?
in front of the old Eckert's Drug Store. That's where it stops. It does not continue through town.
Well, then what is the section of Main Street from 27 to, is it Delaney that the FDOT runs? What's that designation?
That's State Road 17. And that's the State Road 17
Really?
resurfacing project that the state of Florida, the FDOT, is working on. So 64 stops on the west side of Highway 27. State Road 17 comes down from the north, turns east, goes through town, gets to the top of the hill at Memorial, turns right or south down to the four-way stop at Cornell. A lot of people remember they used to call it the Freeze King corner because there's always was a Freeze King there on the southeast corner. Then goes east on Cornell Street where it intersects with the truck route, also known as County Road 17.
Yeah, and that's where you turn up and you turn by the church there and you go up around the borrow pit.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
used to be there used to be a shooting range up there and all the way. And the thing is apparently that the FDOT does not like a dead end. And so their notion is to have 17 dump out up there on the truck route where the new Wawa station is going to be, and then proceed all the way down. You make a left there on 17, go down through Sebring, and then dump out down by the hospital down there on the Sebring Parkway. Make that section of the parkway from Ridgewood all the way down to to the hospital. Make that County Road 17 as well, and the FDOT takes that over as well.
Well, it will become, if the county and the city of Sebring come to terms on that end of the project, that will become State Road 17, as you mentioned, from North Ridgewood south down to Highway 27, terminating down by the hospital on the south end of town.
Well, my conversations with people who live in Sebring, the city officials, they are well aware of this. They are, I will project, I'll say they're all in for this. They're ready to have the city take over Ridgewood Drive from the Parkway all the way down to Southgate Shopping Plaza. They're all about doing that. They're about a year in and a year left to go. They said it's a 2-year process. They're roughly halfway through. I found it astonishing that many of the city officials in Avon Park are absolutely not aware of this whole big idea to turn over the north part of this of State Road 17. They're not aware of any of this. This is all news to them.
Well, it's news to a lot of people, and I don't want to speak to the reasons why I think that is, but it's important to understand, again, as you mentioned, I like to first understand where we were to understand how we got here, so to speak. And when this process in Avon Park, and I'm not going to speak to the Sebring end of it right now, when this process began, it was late in the year 2022. Mark Schrader was still the city manager, and in a December meeting, the only December meeting they had that year, Mark Schrader mentioned that he and the mayor several months ago had a conversation between one another, and the mayor had stated that, boy, he sure would like to see, going back, if you would, in time, as far as going to one lane in each direction and some angled parking and make the downtown area in Avon Park, more walkable. And that was something that they just kind of had a conversation about. And then Mr. Schrader said, a month later, he got an email from Roxanne Lake of FDOT, said, hey, we're going to be doing a resurfacing project in your area, and we're thinking about putting a bike lane in. Are there any things as a community you think you'd like to see that we could incorporate into this process? And so they got their heads together, I guess, the mayor and Mr. Schrader and Ms. Lake, and they had a Zoom call, according to Mr. Schrader. And they said, well, if you'd like to do this be the FDOT, we need to have a letter from you requesting that we enter into some time conversation along those lines. And so Mr. Schrader originated an email back to the FDOT, which ended up being accepted. And then they came and they spoke along with Renaissance Planning, which they were the spokespersons for them at the time, in early January of 2023, and made a proposal to the city council. And so at that time, it was only about lane repurposing. A 3R project had to do with resurfacing and, rehabilitation and what have you. But at no point in time during that entire process, that also included several meetings at the Jacaranda to receive citizenry input, what they'd like to see, and ultimately a resolution that was adopted on a 3-2 vote by City Council in May of that year. At no point in time was the conversation ever about a jurisdictional transfer or ownership needing to go back or come to the city as being a part of that process.
Yeah, I was at that meeting, and the guy who was there from Renaissance Planning, I made a rather snarky remark that he had used more buzzwords in his 15-minute presentation than I'd ever heard one man cram into one presentation, and made Mr. Schrader smile, which is not an easy task. But at any rate, I watched this, and as I said before, I've watched many different downtown revitalization programs where they've tried to make it more walkable. In fact, right out here in front of the Ridge Floor Studios, they have some of that new that decorative sidewalk that has the brick edging and the diamonds in the middle, and it's a custom cut. It's all very nice, to encourage people to walk the downtown area. So I've seen this happen, and when we saw the presentations, I understood that what this was about was the core area, what they call the core area of Avon Park, roughly the Jacaranda Hotel up into the railroad tracks, to encourage people to park in the downtown area. And I've seen these arguments about parking before. In fact, I saw it in Sebring where they said there's no parking in downtown Sebring, and that the then director of the Community Redevelopment Agency, Pete Pollard, said there's 7 parking lots. There's 7 parking lots, and I can tell you that my experience shows that if the people can't see the building they're going to, they consider there's no parking.
Yeah.
They can't park in a lot behind some stores, walk down the block, a half a block, and then see the building. It doesn't really count as parking.
Right. Well, in this project, though, and I want to be clear about it, I understand that it seemed that the main focus on the part of most of the citizenry that participated in the 2 meetings was what ended up being known as Segment 3, which is the historic downtown core, railroad tracks east to Delaney, where the 4-lane goes back to 2. But in truth, this process begins at Highway 27 and continues all the way through. So it encompasses the entire mile-long mall, and it would be 1 lane in each direction in its entirety. The angle parking that's been discussed has only been approved by resolution and council in Segment 3, which is the historic downtown side. So still parallel parking in zones 1 and 2,
yes,
the 2 most western segments of it, and with a bike lane in 1 and 2, but no bike lane and angled parking in zone 3.
And the Florida Department of Transportation in recent years has indicated they are not interested in doing any different kind of restriping. They'll restripe the white lines on the highway, but to do this whole reconfiguration, they're not interested in that. And so the city by default said, well, if we have control of it, we can do what we want with it. But the thing that really surprised me is that the city of Sebring is involved in what they call a road swap. That the city of Sebring apparently spends some money on the parkway. I was under the impression it was all done by the county, but it's not. It's a city and county because it's within the boundaries of the city limits of the city of Sebring. And apparently, from my discussions with some of the elected officials, they believe that it's going to be about even, that they're not going to have to spend a lot more taking over Ridgewood than they are spending on the parkway right now. So it's a swap. They might end up a little bit the worse for wear, but not as bad. Avon Park has no such swap. They are just being asked to take over the whole thing, and they are not realizing any kind of benefit on the other end. This is all going to be on the city.
Well, and it goes a little more further than that. For a number of years, the city of Avon Park and the District 1 Florida Department of Transportation have had contracts, if you will, that had Avon Park mowing for them. You know, sections out there on Highway 27, which is also County Road 17 going north, down along Main Street, and then as the other areas that we mentioned are State Road 17 within the city limits of Avon Park out to the truck route. If this jurisdictional transfer takes over, not only will they assume the ownership and maintenance of all of that surface from Highway 27 down through Main Street to Delaney, but they're also being told that in order to get your lane repurposing now, because the DOT's policy changed since the time that the city signed a resolution in May of 2023, their policy changed so that they no longer do lane repurposing unless ownership is transferred to the municipality or the county. So they'll end up having to they'll lose the check that they've received for maintenance and assume the maintenance, not only of the right of way, but all of the drainage, all the curbing, the gutters, the culverts, the surface, everything. So there's no trade-off. It's all new expenses that they're incurring and no savings.
And understand that Donaldson Park and Lake Verona, with all due respect, Lake Verona is a retention pond.
It is.
And if you ever been in Avon Park, and you probably hear from time to time the motorcycles or the diesel pickups or whatever coming up the hill here. We're on like a 15% grade maybe as they come up the hill. That water all runs downhill and ends up in Lake Verona. And so that is the drainage pond. Now, if there's problems with drainage, the FDOT, and I'm taking a flyer here, the FDOT might have a little bit more pull with the Department of Environmental Protection, Environmental Regulation, the Southwest Florida Water Management District than the city of Avon Park has. So as the FDOT, and we saw them do some excavation here a couple, 3-4 years ago down there on Lake Verona to take care of the drainage, that also will fall on the taxpayers of the citizens of the city of Charm.
That's exactly right. And because Main Street, right now State Road 17, does not have a county road designation, there's no shared responsibility for maintenance with the county. Where at the Parkway down in Sebring, at least there's shared responsibility currently for the Parkway from North Ridgewood all the way back out to the hospital there south of town.
So you could be talking literally millions of dollars, okay? When you hit the bottom line for this project, $10,000 here, $10,000 there, $100,000 here. Pretty soon you're talking about real money, you know? And so my question is, I have not seen that any of the city officials in Avon Park were really aware of what this all entailed.
Well, I would say, based on the conversation, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I reached out to Kyle Purvis, who is the contact at District 1 there in Bartow, and I had a nice little over 20-minute conversation with him on Monday of this week. just after Christmas holiday. And he was very forthcoming, in answering my questions. And he said, look, as a state agency, we no longer consider these. And when I asked him, I says, well, what time somewhere in this process did the state change its policy? And his quote to me was pretty much. And to me, and I'm not making an accusation here, but it feels kind of like a bait and switch type deal where, you're being sold one product and you're getting halfway through the process and, okay, yeah, we've had let's just use a car. We've had the vehicle detailed and we're doing this, that, and the other. Now it's time for you to sign the paperwork on it. And the product's no longer the same. We've tinted the windows and we've done this to the fabric and we've all this, that, and the other. So that you're charging me more. This is not what we had agreed to. And we find ourselves now in where if we only want customization of Main Street from US Highway 27 down to Delaney, which was only going to be, they're going to do the resurfacing no matter what. The only thing that we're asking for customized is paint stripes put in different locations. It's not curbing or anything. It's just repainting the road surface once they finish with. If we want that customization of that mile-long section that was originally agreed upon, we have to not only take ownership of that, which was never communicated during the initial process, we also have to own from Delaney to the top of the hill at Memorial, down to Cornell, and east all the way out to where County Road 17 or the truck route intersects with Cornell.
And that's quite a bit of roadway.
That's quite a bit of roadway. And that's roadway that was never discussed until Dr. Kelly became the city manager in the city of Avon Park in September, I guess it was late September of 2024.
With all due respect, I was a newsman for the radio. I went to many Avon Park City Council meetings. I watched this process, and I've watched Main Street for many years. For instance, it was not so long ago that in order to repave Main Street, they had to do what they called milling because they had put so many coats of repaving on. It had gotten so high that there were some drainage covers that were covered over, and they had to scrape that all off and get down to the base level before they could repave again. And there was a lot of zeros on that bill. The state paid for that, which we paid for through our state taxes. The city didn't pay for it directly. But I mean, I never heard any of this. And when we discussed how long this repurposing, because I couldn't attend that meeting, how far this was, I was absolutely astonished. I said, that it's that far? And the answer is yes. And again, I never saw any presentation of any of this at any of the city council meetings.
It was never done in a city council meeting. And when I say never, I've reviewed minutes from everything from the beginning of 2023 all the way up to present time. I've watched CRA advisory board meetings. I watched CRA board meetings. I've watched city council meetings. And it wasn't until April of 2025 that the first mention in any meeting was made about when we own Main Street. And that was by Dr. Danielle Kelly on April 24th of 2025 in a Main Street CRA advisory board meeting. And it was made just kind of like, this is a foregone conclusion. We already understand that we're going to own it. And then that same comment was made in a joint meeting between the advisory board and the CRA just a month or so later.
And with all due respect, when you say when we own Main Street, it was not when we own Main Street, a section of Memorial and all the way out to Cornell to the truck route.
No, but it was understood on her part that at that time it included that.
Yeah, but I certainly, as not, I go to these meetings. There are some very dedicated people who also go to these meetings. And I would venture to say that no one who sat in those meetings, unless they did some other kind of research, understood what that meant. She may have understood that,
Right.
but I don't think anybody else and I'm not even sure, with all due respect, I'm not sure city council members understood all of that.
Well, I don't believe they did, and I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt on that until I'm told or it can be proven otherwise.
Yeah.
I do know that at that advisory board meeting that I referenced were the first reference of owning it. I know there were two members of the council there, one a liaison and another party that's on the council. I don't need to name them. And then at the joint meeting that I mentioned, just, a few months later, of course, it was the entire council sitting as the CRA that heard the comments. But to the extent that they knew how much of State Road 17 was included in what we're going to own, how much they knew and when did they end up knowing it? I can't tell you at this point.
Well, we have gone through 2 budget cycles and are fixing to go through a third. And one of the things that happens early in each year is the city council budgets a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And they all get together early on a Saturday morning with coffee and donuts, and then hack through somewhere around a 4, 5, 6 hour meeting where they go through the budget line by line and decide how much they're going to spend on this, how much they're going to spend on that, how much they're going to spend on the other thing. And if you lay this roadway maintenance over top of that budget, there's going to be a lot less to spend on many of the other things that many of these council members have on their wish lists.
Well, and I want to be clear here. Initially, if this goes through, and it's not a done deal yet.
No, not at all.
Some are talking like when we own it, as if it's a foregone conclusion. But the city council still has to act on this jurisdictional transfer. And I'll mention the date here in a few minutes. It's not very far in the future. Mm-hmm. But to be sure, this resurfacing project is basically going to hand over a fresh road to not only the city of Avon Park, but the city of Sebring when they finish doing what they're going to do down there, which is not dependent on what Avon Park does. Those are 2 separate actions under the same DOT work project. But that being the case, you have a city council, particularly now that term limits have been imposed, that will be committing future councils to the maintenance and those expenditures. They won't be on that council unless they go off and then are reelected. So this is a process that the citizenry did not agree to. They agreed to, and they had input on a mile-long section of Main Street, restriping it to provide more angled parking in segment 3, a bike lane in 1 and 2, 1 lane of traffic in each direction with chicanes that will slow the traffic down. That's what the citizens bargained for. Mm-hmm. This process has changed, and it's not been discussed that way in public meeting. And I, quite frankly, I'm offended that it hasn't been brought forward.
And myself as a conservative, people who know me know that I'm pretty fiscally conservative. I really think that these considerations need to have a price tag attached to them somehow. For instance, can we find out in the past 5 years, in the past 10 years, how much has the Florida Department of Transportation spent on this roadway? And let's say arguably this is a fresh roadway and not much needs to be done to it. I do 5 days a week. I do a podcast, and we sit in this studio, and it's not unusual to have big semi trucks coming up and down Main Street here, even though there at least was, if not currently is, an ordinance disallowing those heavy trucks to come through, but they eat up the road very quickly. So I would say that 5 years, maybe 10 years tops, we're talking about some serious work. And as you say, in 10 years, there'll be a new council up there.
Well, one of the main concerns, and I think one of that brought this whole idea that the mayor had, in 2022 that he discussed with Mark Schrader at the time, the city manager, was that, look, we need to slow the traffic down. There has to be a way to do it. Go into one lane in each direction certainly would help slow the traffic down in lieu of having law enforcement being able to be effective at doing that the way that things are right now. Stands to reason. If you've got one lane of traffic and people are driving slower in front of you, you're not going to be able to pull out around and pass,
Right.
like is done now.
Lakeview Drive.
Yeah, Lakeview Drive would be one. That being said, I mean, you also have people that have restaurants down in the main street, the segment 3, the historic downtown core, that would like to have cafe tables and things like that out in front of their businesses. And I get it. It's got a cutesy thing, but there's other things that have to be taken into consideration. Beyond the traffic flow and the speed of traffic, what's it going to do to the sidewalks? And they're going to have to adopt ordinances, quite frankly, you're going to have to keep the golf carts off the sidewalks in Main Street, even though they're not supposed to be there. The electric bicycles that travel way too fast and nearly run over people on the sidewalks, as well as scooters and other types of transportation. Those will all be things that have to be taken into consideration. Why they haven't already, I don't know. But there are things that have to happen. But owning Main Street, or the rest of it for that matter, doesn't have to happen for those types of things. Law enforcement can slow down traffic. The chicanes that they're talking about will do away, quite frankly, with the incentive for large trucks to drive through Main Street. It's going to slow them down to the point where I guess we might as well use the truck route instead, which they should be doing anyway.
Amen.
But again, the city of Avon Park no longer has a law enforcement mechanism of their own to initiate a traffic stop.
Well, to be honest, that we just had an event in Sebring right at the down in New Year's Eve, celebrating 75 years of racing in Sebring, and I did make it a point to go and look. And used to that it was stenciled on the sidewalk. It's not stenciled on the sidewalk anymore, but there is no shortage of signs saying no bicycles on the circle, no skateboards on the circle, no roller skates on this, that they regulate the kind of traffic that they allow or disallow on the circle. Even though, as I understand it, the FDOT, that's FDOT right of way. The same way the mall in Avon Park, the grassy area between the two lanes, is owned by the Florida Department of Transportation, who apparently look at least these two sections of their property with benign neglect. They don't stop the city of Sebring pouring a slab right up next to the berm and putting a gazebo on their property. They don't, which is new. It's not since the circle and the spoke sidewalks and all that. That's brand new. And putting up these concrete ping pong tables and some of the concrete cornhole goals that they put up, that they've festooned the circle with as part of their downtown revitalization. The FDOT has rather turned a blind eye to that. It's not that they don't know that it exists. They just, as long as you're willing to do the maintenance, they pretty much don't care. I understand that's one of the reasons they're not used to. Back in the olden days, they would take strings of lights off the top of the flagpole and make a giant Christmas tree, but they couldn't, for whatever reason, do that anymore. So, and here in Avon Park, they have petitioned to have the inside lanes closed and then rented out FDOT property for the Jacaranda Festival, or the Mall Festival, if you will. And they've done that, and the FDOT has looked at that with benign neglect. So the city has been allowed to pretty much do whatever they want in between the lanes. But again, if I was going to attach a price tag to this, it would seem to me, if you wanted to slow down traffic, you could finance a traffic cop in downtown Avon Park for many, 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 many years for what it's going to cost to take over the maintenance of this highway.
Oh, yeah, you certainly could. your conversation about what's going on and what the city of Sebring has been allowed to do down there on the circle, pretty much as of late,
Yeah.
these types of things. And I don't know if those permissions have somewhat been granted by the FDOT in lieu of the fact that the city fathers down there have said, hey, yeah, we're all on board with this road transfer. So, since we're going to go ahead and own it, will you allow us to do this in the interim? That could have been part of the conversation. I don't know. In Avon Park, since the assumption on the part of at least that former city manager and the outgoing CRA executive director has been that, hey, we're going to own this thing. I don't know if that's the reason that 2 sections of sidewalk have been poured on the very east end of the mall down by Donaldson Park and the section immediately west of it or not. I don't know if permissions were granted, but they're there and they've been recently placed. All I do know is that the city of Avon Park, in order to have this lane repurposing project that was originally discussed and approved by city council by resolution in May of 2023, if it is going to move forward, because the DOT has changed its policy that according to Kyle Purvis in Bartow, they must accept ownership of the mile-long mall and all of State Road 17 that was previously discussed all the way out to the truck route, and they have to do this by a resolution with a date no later than February 27th.
So
that's 4 meetings from now.
2 months, yeah.
4 meetings from now. And because of that, I asked earlier this week to be placed on the January 12th agenda of the Avon Park City Council to discuss this. I don't know that each member of the city council fully understands this or not, but they need to. And I can tell you that the citizens don't know this.
Well, and I will tell you that you've done a much deeper dive into this than I have. Okay. I attended some meetings. I watched meetings. I took notes. You apparently have not found any public documentation on any of this. Okay. I have not seen or heard anything about any of this in open meeting, either at Community Redevelopment Agency meetings or at the Avon Park City Council meetings.
Right.
And I don't want to say there's been a lack of transparency, but certainly there has been a lack of communication for normal citizens. I consider myself a normal citizen with a pencil. Okay, I'm in there. I'm taking notes. I distill some of these stories down and do them as stories. Used to on the radio, now on the internet and in programs like this. And when we began this discussion, I was totally unaware of this. Have you found any documentation of correspondence or things, public documents that arguably council members should have seen or been aware of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have. And quite frankly, it's disappointing not only to myself, but also Mr. Purvis at the DOT. Again, I mentioned earlier, he's been very forthcoming in answering my questions and frankly, providing me documentation. And the conversation that started regarding the jurisdictional transfer of not just Main Street, but all of State Road 17, all the way out to the truck route, originated probably the end of 2024, but certainly
Really?
early 2025. And he provided me a letter on Avon Park, City of Avon Park letterhead that was dated February 10th, 2025, addressed to Kyle Purvis, that reads as follows. It says, and I'm going to get it right here, folks, because I want you to understand it.
Please.
It says, reference request for transfer. Dear Mr. Purvis, this letter shall serve as the City of Avon Park's official request to begin the process of transferring portions of, catch this, State Road 64 and ancillary roadways as depicted on the enclosed graphic. Staff reviewed the proposed transfer limits and agrees to start working on negotiations, the roadway transfer agreement. If you require any additional information, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. Gives the phone number, and it's signed singularly by Danielle M. Kelly. This never came to city council.
No.
It was never a council action. The thing that distresses me, it says staff reviewed the proposed transfer limits and agrees to start working on the negotiation.
Who is staff?
Well, staff obviously is more than one person,
Maybe.
but could be more. But interestingly enough, when I asked Mr. Purvis about the conference calls that they were having that started just right after that, he provided me a list of all the invitees to the conference calls that were held on the last Thursday of every month, beginning February, just after that letter was sent by the city of Avon Park. And in Avon Park, named were Mayor Garrett Anderson, then Public Works Jason Atkinson, Christian Hardman, and Danielle Kelly. When I asked Mr. Purvis how many people from Avon Park attended those meetings, he says, well, it was always just Danielle, except for the first meeting. I believe Jason Atkinson was on that.
So Mayor Anderson was not on to that.
He did not indicate that Mayor Anderson ever participated, but
And I don't believe that two council members could have participated in that
no.
call, even if they did, unless none of them said anything, just was only by listening only, because that would have been sunshine law violation.
It would have been a sunshine law, because if it was something that was going to come up in the future that they would have to vote on,
Yes.
you couldn't have two of them participate
So
in
if
that.
it would have been the mayor and any other council member, that would have been disallowed.
It would have been problematic. But, interesting, as you look at the rest of the folks who are invited, there's J.D. Langford from the Highlands County. You had Scott Naglick from Sebring, a Sharon Harris, who I'm not familiar with, a Jonathan Harrison. You had the county administrator, Ms. Herner. You had the mayor of Sebring, John Shoup. So you had multiple people participating, from other entities, but you didn't have from Avon Park except for allegedly the first meeting.
And the mayor of Sebring has no vote. He is a ceremonial mayor. He can comment during council meetings, but he has no vote. So the mayor of Sebring could have been on with a council member, and there would have been no problem.
That wouldn't have been a problem.
Okay, I just want people to understand how this works.
Right. So it's one of these things where, in the conversation again that I had earlier this week with Mr. Purvis, he said, I've had the opportunity now since the former city manager is no longer there, and Jason Atkinson, the interim city manager, is now in the seat. He said, I've had the opportunity to interact with Jason about this project, and that Jason has told him, Mr. Purvis, that it's obvious that the former city manager did not communicate the size, scope, and scale of this project to the council members, to which he says, I was very surprised. And my response to him was that, well, surprised or not, I'm very disappointed. And he agreed, because, this late in the process, to not understand that the scope and scale had changed from just a simple mile-long section on Main Street, that there was no ownership required, to having to own all of State Road 17 from Highway 27 out to the truck route. That's a big ask.
Oh, it's a huge ask. And what is amazing to me, and I'm still don't have my arms around this yet, because I have only, over the holidays, when things are already kind of chaotic, to have learned about this. And then I in fact, even today, the day after New Year's, I tried to get in touch with some people who are not working because it's the day after New Year's, they get a day off. But City of Sebring apparently is 1 year into a 2-year process, and they are roughly at 1 year left to go. City of Avon Park's turnaround time is 2 months, which is 4 meetings. And that's a huge disparity in the amount of time they have to make decisions on this?
I had the opportunity to attend the 75th anniversary event, down there on the Sebring Circle on New Year's Eve as well. And I had the pleasure of bumping into Mayor Shoup.
Oh, yeah.
And so we talked about this project a little bit, and he was thrilled, as I mentioned, that they're going to have the opportunity to take over ownership of that section from Ridgewood on down, because they see it being beneficial to them. But he himself was very surprised that the city council was not aware of everything that was going on with this project. He says he was on the same conference calls and heard the same things beginning, back in February of 2025. And he says for them not to know this at this late date is quite a surprise. And I asked him, I said, when is your drop dead date, to execute a jurisdictional transfer resolution? He said, oh, ours has been pushed back. Ours won't be until, well after Avon Park's. They're kind of waiting to see what happens in Avon Park and how smoothly it goes before they move forward with the Sebring end.
Now, do you think, and we've kind of gone on the, because it hasn't come up in city council meeting, and I'm afraid that the city council in Avon Park, if they know something, they don't mind blurting it out. There's very little secrecy among the five of them there, and as some people may know, that there may be just a small bit of contention between some of the folks up there, and so they're not all in agreement on one thing. Do you think they didn't know? Because I think they didn't know because nobody ever brought it up. But and do they know now, or do you think after listening to this and hearing the poking about, because let's say Jason Atkinson as city manager can talk to each council member individually and there's no violation of any statutes, the Sunshine Law or anything. Do you think they now are aware or are becoming aware of this whole situation?
I don't know. And I would like to think that they do. I can tell you from two references. As I mentioned, I've already asked to be placed on the January 12th meeting. And during that text conversation back and forth with the city manager, interim city manager, he let me know that he was going to be meeting with the FDOT and Bartow next week.
Really?
And in the conversation, a follow-up conversation I had with Mr. Purvis on New Year's Eve afternoon, he let me know that Mr. Atkinson was scheduled to be there on Monday for a face-to-face conversation with him. Interesting to me is that also on Monday, that's January 5th.
The week of the 5th.
Yeah, the week of the 5th, that outgoing Community Redevelopment Agency Development Director Jessica Carlson will be holding a joint meeting between the CRA Advisory Board and the City Council, sitting as the CRA Board to kind of give them a State of the Union style update.
State of the city, yeah.
And so that meeting will be the evening that Mr. Atkinson has been over and spoken with Mr. Purvis and Bartow. So I'm hopeful that maybe some of the conversation that he has on Monday with Mr. Purvis, and the fact that I have made it clear that I intend to speak to this issue the following week on the 12th, that we'll hear something about that meeting.
Oh, yeah.
On the 5th.
Yeah.
And that the council, as the CRA and the advisory board, will be fully up to speed.
I know that sometimes when people want to, one of our dearly departed local gadflies, Preston Colby, would ask to speak to somebody, and they'd say, why? He says, because I want to. That's why. It's none of your business why I want to speak to them. And well, why do we put that? It says, just put remarks. So, they already know that A, this is what you want to talk about,
Yes.
and B, you've done no small amount of work to figure out. You've got like 4 or 5 pages here, and you sent me some too. So they understand that you've already done a lot of the heavy lifting on this.
I wouldn't say it's heavy, but I will tell you that it's been time consuming and there's been very many late hours. Like I said, I was up till nearly about 2 this morning and up by 5:30 going back over more of the meetings that are on YouTube. And quite frankly, I appreciate those records being up there for us to go back and in people's actual words.
Yes.
It's invaluable. There's no way to put a price tag on that. And I also appreciate Mr. Purvis
Yes.
in his capacity of being as open and upfront about the process as it's been and how it's actually changed from the time that we entered into, we being the city, a lane repurposing project in May of 2023. And now all of a sudden they want us to own all of State Road 17 to get any kind of customization that is relegated to only paint on Main Street here in Avon Park.
So what I'm hearing is the next big date will be January the 12th. Do you anticipate FDOT might get a call and say maybe one of your guys might want to come down for this? Maybe have you heard anything along those lines? Or?
Well, I don't know. That might be part of the conversation that Mr. Atkinson, in his interim city manager capacity, has with them on Monday. I did let Mr. Purvis know that I had asked to be put on the agenda for the 12th. But I do know that he's adamant that the drop dead date for the city accepting the jurisdictional transfer portion of this whole deal is the 27th of February. He did say that Jerry Buer, the city's attorney, was working on the resolution, so Jerry's mindful of it. To the extent that the rest of the council members are, I don't know. Or to the extent that the project's scope and scale has been changed, I don't know. I can tell you that I have spoken to one member of the council on multiple occasions. They don't have to have their name mentioned, but they were not aware of what this was entailing. Certainly at the December 2nd, 2025 public hearing that the FDOT had. And just so people understand, 4 of the 5 city council members were at that public hearing at the library. The only one not in attendance was Mayor Anderson.
Okay.
And the interim city manager was there as well.
And that meeting, to kind of come full circle on this, that meeting, many of us believed was only about the restriping and repurposing of a small part of Main Street, and what we believed was only the turnover of a small part of Main Street, and not this whole long section, which it's come to light this is going to be part and parcel.
Well, and it's important to understand, and I want people to, if this is their takeaway, the day of that meeting, December 2nd, the public hearing, the FDOT, they sent out pictures, and most of the pictures were all about the different modifications, different arrangements for segments 1, 2, and 3 in the downtown area. But because they'd received evidently so many questions late in the afternoon, and I'm told it was around 3 o'clock, they sent something out, an update on their City of Avon Park website in red. It said FDOT meeting today. Then it said FDOT meeting today is reference the transfer of ownership of Main Street, not restructuring of lanes. Very late in the afternoon. I'm told after 3 o'clock, with the meeting starting around 4:30. So to that end,
90 minutes.
Yeah, to that end, anybody that had planned on going to that meeting had already made up their minds to go. If they'd researched anything, it would have been the lane changes, nothing to do with jurisdictional transfer. And when they walked in the room, they say, "What?" So, and they were told, this meeting is only to receive public input. This is not the time to ask, nor will we be answering any questions. If you have
that's helpful.
Yeah, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them after the meeting. So how's that work out for you?
Yeah. Well, and so for the folks listening to this early on, January the 12th, and after January 12th, I guess we'll come back and talk about this some more and see how it plays out.
I'm sure there'll be much more to talk about. And in the meantime, anybody that wants to find out any more, I'd recommend reaching out to each of your elected officials in the city of Avon Park and maybe bouncing a few questions off of City Hall as well, because, you know, this is not what the citizens asked for. This is not what they bargained for. It's not what the council approved in May of 23. The rules have changed.
And with all due respect, the truck route, which goes there right off 17 and makes a huge arc around where the Big Bang gun range used to be, and dumps out on where the new Wawa is going to be, is county maintained. My question is, did Kevin Roberts, who is the District 1 county commissioner of Avon Park, that is maintained by the county, did the county know about that?
Yeah. Yes, they did.
Okay.
And it went to the board. And the board did send a letter back to the FDOT saying that they would be interested to participate in the process, depending on whether or not Avon Park took ownership of State Road 17 through town. And I actually have that document right here.
One would think that there might be some discussion between Mr. Roberts and one of the city council members, at least one of the city council members, about this, because that anybody who knows anything about the county, they only do a very finite number of roads, and the truck route is not a small road. That's not some dirt road nobody uses.
No, but you can imagine how thrilled that the county would be to be able to get rid of County Road 17 and turn it over to the state. And let me, in closing, just go ahead and read that letter since you brought it up, and I have it right here. And it's addressed again to Mr. Purvis, and this reference the request for jurisdictional transfer of Sebring Parkway from US 27 to State Road 17 and County Road 17A from US 27 to State Road 17 from Highlands County to the Department of Transportation. And it says, Dear Mr. Purvis, on March 4th, 2025, at its regular board meeting, the Highlands County Board of County Commissioners unanimously agreed to move forward with the transfer process from Highlands County to the FDOT, and again, it's those referenced stretches I just mentioned, as depicted on the maps attached here too. Please accept this letter as Highlands County's official request for FDOT to commence the process to transfer maintenance jurisdiction accordingly. Should you have any questions, and again, it's signed by both Lori Herner and J.D. Langford. This letter was carboned to each of the 5 city or county commissioners.
Yeah.
And so you see the difference here. This went to a regular board meeting. Everybody was involved. There was a unanimous vote taken by that entity. It was signed by both the county administrator and the assistant county administrator, acting county engineer, and submitted back. And in Avon Park, all they got was a letter signed personally by Danielle Kelly and no council action.
To quote Alice on her way into Wonderland, it just gets curiouser and curiouser. It's going to be very interesting. It's another chapter in the City of Charm. So,
well, I tell you, I appreciate the opportunity to dig into this. I hope people will listen to this and share it with some friends.
Absolutely.
Because we need folks who have no clue to no longer be clueless about it, because this is a long-term, forever and ever, amen, Randy Travis style.
Oh, they're not taking it
commitment.
back.
No, and they said as much.
There goes the truth train, by the way.
There's a truth train, yeah.
The truth train, yeah.
But once it's transferred, there's no going back, and they said as much.
Oh, yeah. It's like when you buy something in the thrift store, all sales are final, and that's not going to go back. So, Tom, I really appreciate you doing the deep dive into this and doing so much work, because it helps citizens be informed, and that's what we're all about. We want the citizens to be informed.
Amen.
So, but county and city, you've been in, and thanks for being with us. We'll be back again. You've been listening to the Barry Foster Show from the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park, in the Ridge Florist Studios. If you need flowers for any occasion, Ridge Florist is the place to go. They're just north of the Parkway on Memorial Drive, 111 Memorial Drive. You can call them 382-4477, or you can go on the web, ridgefloristofsebring.com. And remember, guys, if you want to make your girlfriend happy, flowers for no particular reason, which are a lot cheaper than makeup flowers, okay? Just telling you right now. And Ridge Florist, the FTD Florist, is the place to go. And we appreciate you being tuned in as we continue to look for truth, justice, and the American way. Barry Foster and Tom Macklin, and we'll see you next time.